Hi, I'm Arya from OccaSoftware Marketing Department, and welcome to one of our online chats where we talk about indie game developments, the struggles, the challenges, and the beauty of it all. This week we have Kyle from the community who's been very helpful with answering a lot of your questions on Discord, and I'm so excited to meet him, and I've learned a lot from this conversation, and I hope that you will too. So have a watch, like this video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you like to see more content from us. Ciao!
Okay. So, this is exciting. Should we just start?
No, why
Mhm.
not?
So, really would love to know about you, Kyle. I've seen you on LinkedIn. I've seen you a lot on Discord. Who are you? Tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Kyle. I'm sort of a developer, game developer, sort of previously it has sort of rekindled their desire to do game development now, after almost 8, 10 years, I would say, which is a pretty wild time. So I originally started out in game development, about, I want to say 10 years ago, just working on games, as a sort of just the developer side of things. I never did the programming side. That was up to one of my friends that I first started a studio with back in something called Roblox, which I'm sure a lot of people are now familiar with. This was back in the
Uh-huh.
old days. Probably started around like 2008. Probably one of the like very old OGs on Roblox there. And we made just a lot of fun stuff that we really like to make like want to play ourselves, right? Just kids back then. And this eventually turned from something that we just started as a fun little project to something that ended up exploding into a larger community as we made a few successful titles. And then sort of became a thing that's still running to this day, even though I've taken a significant step back from it, to focus on school and all that stuff. But they're still running, and which is a really awesome thing to see. Um, After that, after taking a step back from that, I ended up moving on to work on focusing on marketing. So I ended up working with L'Oreal. I ended up starting my own branding sort of studio to help like companies in China and Asia bring their products directly to the US. I also then ended up working at a few startups post grad. I ended up working at a startup that me and a few others founded called Feather. And then I ended up working also at another YC startup called Zensors, where they're basically focusing on AI camera tech for turning security cameras into smart devices for data analytics. And now after that, I'm now taking a step back after like working on a lot of this tech stuff and realizing, hey, I'm mostly just coming at this from a like a non-technical side. I've just been doing marketing, I've just been doing design, like all this kind of stuff. And I've worked with all these like incredible people, but I've never actually done computer science myself, even though I've sort of always had a desire to do it. I've been working on like drones. I've been like doing engineering myself in the side time, but I never did computer science, even though I work specifically with a lot of computer science and like programming. So I've decided over the past year or so that I was going to fully focus on studying that to expand my skill set even more. And here I am just working on games. Yeah.
What made you finally like realize? Because I feel like there's three parts of your life where you were developing games full time for fun, and then did it turn like big by
Oh, sorry,
accident,
what
or were
would you
you?
say?
Is that
You kind of cut out there.
sorry? So I think there are like three parts of your trajectory career-wise in gaming. Because you were developing a game with your friends, and then sort of it turned big, and then you started working in marketing. Was that reality hit
Oh,
you again?
yeah. That's a very interesting thing. So when I in that studio, so it's called Unsquared, and I think you still look it up. They're still making games. I think the most recent thing they've made has been like over 1 billion plays on Roblox or something like that. It's pretty big. Um, Basically, I started out with that, mostly doing the like development side, sort of like making models, working on the game mechanics and core concepts like that, art, etc. And as we brought in more people, we eventually turned that into. I eventually began to take more of a step back in managing community, focusing on like the managing sides of it, the marketing, working with social media influencers, basically just working more on the marketing side that I really found like a love for, mostly because of like the massive positive community like interaction. I just love that, being with like work with people that really we were making like an impact with, right? And be able to like help them like enjoy things even more. And I sort of ended up carrying that on into a sort of love for marketing, because like I have this like mantra where I go by, if you invent the cure for cancer and no one knows about it, did it even matter, right?
Yeah.
Like
Big
if you
time.
make this amazing thing and no one hears about it or knows about it, like how can that possibly be? So I made my like, I love just like bringing things I thought were these incredible things to market, to try and help spread the word about them. So that sort of like was my transition from that period to the next period, where I ended up focusing on marketing. And now I'm back where I'm realizing, hey, I want to go make stuff again. Like I missed that sort of passion. I felt there was a bit of a gap, and maybe a little bit of a regret that I didn't focus that much on the making part of it as much. And sort of that's why I'm back at it. I just love getting my hand dirty and making things.
Yeah, but I think marketing a game is like an art in its
Oh yeah,
own.
definitely.
But what do you think? What do you think? What do you think is the biggest like recipe for success in marketing a
Oh,
game?
I don't know if there's a recipe. I think every situation is completely different on its own. I can share. I think you can go on analogies of how other people have done their things. For example, with my first successful game, right? It was just something where we sort of hacked the system a little bit, with like social engineering. Basically, back in the old days of Roblox, there was this the servers would go down every like few weeks for maintenance, right? Which meant that every single, if you know how Roblox works, it's basically there's the front page has all of the most popular games on it, and featured games on it. So every few weeks there would be this downtime that was unscheduled, but we would basically set a like alert for this, where basically we, hey, it will notify us, hey, the servers are down, right? And what would happen when the servers went down is that every single game Roblox, all their servers would be purged because their AWS cluster or something, they just like purged them, right? Which meant that the front page was basically just 0 players on it. This was back when Roblox, maybe like the front page would have like maybe 1,000 players, 2,000, 3,000 maybe, most. And this meant that if you can get enough people in your game, if you can bring enough of your friends in, you could basically jump from non-existent game into being on the front page pretty much just immediately. If you can get enough people on before other people rejoin their games, you can just get to front page and you get new players in and hopefully hook them with like interactions, keeping them engaged and stuff like that in your game. So that was like a great thing that got us our first bit of exposure, basically just ensuring like those dips in downtime to basically just make sure we were at the top of the page and just letting the success, like the fun of our game, just carry on for the rest, like just propelling it past that. But I think probably if I had to say it, if there's a formula, having a fun to play game is probably the most important thing first and foremost. If your game is not fun, it's going to be pretty hard to sell it. I have to at least have a decent product.
How do you make a fun game, right?
Oh, that is the question that I'm sure if you had to answer for, every AAA studio would be after you. Honestly, I would say that it's again one of those things that just it completely depends on like a case-to-case scenario. Just like with marketing, a fun game is completely subjective. Someone that enjoys a Farmville time game probably isn't going to like a FPS, and vice versa. So I think if, especially at the indie level, if you're focusing first and foremost on something that you are passionate about first, you're already 50% there. Because then once you make something you're passionate about that you actually enjoy, and you find that thing that you really like, you just have to find people that are similar to you. And those people could be your friends, those people could be your people in communities of similar games that you like, things like that. But generally, you're not going to be like completely isolated. If you find something truly fun for yourself, there are going to be other people that find that fun as well. So it's just my personal mantra. It's not something that everyone follows. Obviously, you don't have to be enjoying your game to make it AAA studios. As I know some people working those. But I think especially one of the strengths about indie is that you are making something like that you have full creative control over, right? And if you're not enjoying your game first, like you're not going to finish this game if you don't enjoy making your own game and playing your own game. And yeah, I think that is one of the most important things about fun. Making a fun game is finding the fun in yourself, right?
Sure.
That yourself.
Yeah, I think that's like definitely true. I think a big challenge that AAA teams have with that is that like as an indie developer, it might be you or a couple people. And so when you think about like the main challenge you were saying, like, oh, it's about knowing your audience. And for an indie game, that's probably you plus like your friends. But for a AAA team, it's like, oh, well, they can't just use themselves because there's so many different constituents in the team. So then they have a bigger sort of upfront haul on marketing side to figure out who are we building for, what type of games do they like, what sort of marketing will appeal to them. Whereas for indie, it's almost easier and you have an advantage in that space because the people who like this game is us. We like this game.
Yeah, that's the main selling point of indie anyways. I guess that creativity is just do things for yourself and do things for the sake of creation is one of I think the beauty of it. And yeah. Anyway, that was really nice actually. I'm learning a lot as I go. And marketing wise, I think a lot of indie developers are really terrified and find maybe game marketing a bit intimidating. But the fact that creating the game itself is part of the marketing, it takes the weight off your shoulder a little bit. What do you think of that?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like making the game is pretty much like, as an indie, you have limited resources, right? One of the biggest time constraints, like one of the biggest constraints that you're just one person or just a few people. Like when I was working on Square, we were just like a team of, I think at most we had 4 or 5 developers at any 5, I think. Yeah, that was the most we had at any time. But then we had a massive community of like 10, 20 like people helping out with the community who were like our moderators. But like it's just the amount of time that you have is just so limiting. And if you can't be like just focusing on marketing, right? You can't just have like one person, or even just if you're just yourself, just like spend like entire like days of your time just working on marketing, which is pretty much a requirement for like if you want to be like or something like that, which is just unreasonable. Realistically, like you should be thinking about ways that you can make your work dual purpose. I think that's a really big thing. In any case, if you're like, something I like doing is I like taking screenshots, for example, just to share, like take progress reports or like compare things. And I think these screenshots I'm taking are very, very important for that can be also used for marketing, right? They can also be used to share and get interest in a game. Like your process can also have like other ways of like other use cases. I guess that's a way to put it.
True. I mean, that's something that we do as well. Like when I'm developing a new asset, what we'll do during the process is like take screenshots and take videos as we're building it out. And that type of stuff is really helpful because you can show like before and after or progress pics or work in progress and behind the scenes. I think that too is an advantage that indie teams have over AAA, because at AAA, it's like a lot harder. You need to get like legal approval, marketing approval. Will players think our game is bad if we show like early progress pics? Will they think that's what the final look is going to be like? But at indie, people are much more excited about coming along with the journey with you.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things about being an indie developer. What do you think are other advantages of being indie developer that maybe others don't really think of?
Really quick, I just also want to like put back on like what we're talking about the behind the scenes thing. I think it's like that thing about having it behind the scenes is something that is not just a advantage for indie developers, but I think like even if you're like AAA titles or like AA titles, I think one of the coolest things is seeing just the behind the scenes, at least for a developer. Maybe this is a developer thing, but the behind the scenes for a lot of these massive titles, just seeing like them being like put to like in the progress stage is really awesome. Like the GTA leaks, for example, that was really interesting. Seeing how they had their development like at that stage where that was, even though it was like a leak, or like GDC stuff. Like that stuff is awesome to see. Maybe that's not for the end consumer, but like there's an entire genre of like customers who are into like constructing things, and I feel like if there's like a genre of that, like where it's just people building things, or like I'm sure people like to see games too. Like there are games about making games, so I'm sure people find fun in that, anyways.
Is it something you're working on right now?
No,
Maybe
no.
that's
What's up?
Is that something you're working on right now? Sorry, I think my mic is a bit off,
Oh.
but is that something you're working on right now? A game about making games?
No.
The genre that you're
There's quite
working
a
on?
few out there.
Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty cool. But so you're in Georgia now.
Mm.
You moved back. You will move to Georgia for because you're bootstrapping your game. Is that apart from that? What do you think is? I think that's maybe a challenge that a lot of people, a lot of indie developers face. What do you think? Other
Yes.
challenges that they might
Yeah.
face?
So I think so. I moved to Georgia because of costs. Still fly to New York a lot for friends, for like networking and stuff like that. It's a 2-hour flight, and you can get like you can get Frontier tickets for like $40 sometimes. It's not that bad. Or bus tickets around in places that are more expensive.
Yeah.
And like one of the biggest thing for me is just cost. Like if like whenever I go to New York City, it's the cost of living there. It just feels so absurd compared to just living in even like a city like Atlanta, where I'm currently at. Just in the outskirts in that area. It's just I remember just going to a restaurant in the city and expecting the prices there to be something like $15, like maybe $18 at the high end. Thinking like, oh yeah, it shouldn't have increased that much over the past few years. But no, it was like $30 a dish. And like I was like, I can get this for like $12 in Atlanta. Which was funny. But I think one of the most important things though is when you're thinking about indie is you can't be forgetting about your budget, right? Your runway in the startup space is runway. It's how long you can run based on your own personal funds, or is it investors, is it all that stuff? Because I think a big thing that will stop a lot of these larger projects, larger indie projects from going through is people are thinking, hey, I'm going to work on this like full time, right? But then what is your runway? How long are you going to be able to keep going for? How long? What can you invest in? Like setting like the planning for that is also really important. I personally put into like mindset with all my like budget and my constraints that, okay, if I want to properly make this, it will probably take me way longer than I have the runway for if I lived in New York. So it's better to move to somewhere cheaper cost of living, maybe somewhere where I have like previous established like family ties and stuff like that. So I chose to move, which made like takes a huge like load off your shoulder.
Mhm.
I'm sure there's even like cheaper places to live as well. Like if you live in other countries like Southeast Asia, I know a lot of developers that I know end up living just because the cost of living there is cheaper. Allows them to extend their runway, and I'm sure there's a lot of like better like quality of life things there too. Like you don't have to have a car to drive around everywhere, which I sometimes regret.
Yeah.
Public transport. But yeah, it's a budget, and your runway is super important. And I think that's mostly why I came here.
Yeah, I was reading an
Yeah.
article the other day from Paul Graham about being default alive versus default dead. He's
Yeah.
basically saying like, if you continue as you are, like, will your company fail or will it not fail? And like a huge component as a founder, and especially when you're bootstrapped, is like making sure that it's not default dead, where it's not gonna, if things keep going as they are, it's not gonna fail. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of very similar to a challenge that a lot of game developers face. But I think it can be almost harder in some respects for game developers, because for gaming, like for like businesses, a lot of times your revenue kind of grows over time, and you sort of build up customers or subscribers, or you're growing different channels and things like that. But for gaming, a lot of it is much more about the launch and about the initial release, kind of similar to like film or other entertainment. And so there's a little bit more risk and a little bit more of a question mark about when we release. like we're going in the right direction, we hope, but when we release, what will happen? And so I think doing some things to help reduce the risk there, like releasing smaller projects more frequently, or like building a and sort of like baked in audience to make sure or sort of guarantee like a lower bound of sales, something like that, can go a long way to help make sure that as a company, like a studio is more on the default alive side versus the default dead side.
Yeah. I think that planning
I mean,
thing is
sorry.
sorry. Oh yeah.
No, sorry.
I think
Go
that
ahead.
like
Go ahead.
planning part is like one of the most difficult parts for indie, especially like I think yeah, pretty much always, because when you're doing indie, if it's your first game or like you're constantly learning new skills, right?
Mhm.
You don't know how to plan for that learning thing. Sometimes like even if you have like some experience, a lot of times you don't know that experience in terms of scaling that. So even if you set a like run like an estimate, hey, it's going to take me like 1 month to finish this feature I really want or implement this, a lot of the times you don't know, right? If you're just someone learning how to code or learning how to do 3D modeling, if you're just someone learning how to do sound design, you don't have any idea of how long it's going to take you to do this thing. So I think it becomes very, very difficult in the for like indie devs, especially because we're doing everything, right? You're always learning something new in indie dev, to like create a proper schedule to like plan at runway. And I think one of the biggest things I found was like that's just something you have to find a way to deal with. You have to learn when to cut and stop early, and when to like say, hey, this is as far as I can go. I have to stick to this like timeline if I want to get this done. Or even just like there's a bunch of things you can also like just plan ahead of time, just give yourself an extra buffer. Hey, I think it's going to take like 2 weeks to do this, but realistically, like I'm going to give myself a month, because I know that this kind of thing, other people have said this is a challenge to implement or learn. And this is like something you can ask other people, like what their experiences are too. That's really important.
Yeah, I mean that timeline and sort of scoping thing is so true.
Yeah.
Like in my previous work, I was working in like American Express as a product manager, and basically like the way that we would set timelines. I mean, this isn't the way we would set timelines, but basically what would happen is like I'd ask the engineers like, okay, this is the feature we want to build. Like, how long do you think it's gonna take? Oh, 2 weeks. So I'm like, okay, so that's probably like 4 weeks. And then so I'll like go and tell my like business partners like, oh, it'll probably be like 4 weeks. And then they're like, okay, got it. So about 8 weeks then.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So
but
and then just kind of like being really tight about scoping and making sure you don't take on too much work. Everything that you're gonna do is gonna take way, way longer than you think it's gonna take. So just being really tight and clear about what scope, what's important. I mean, even big games skip out on a lot of like features that as an indie developer you would want to incorporate. Like I remember I was reading about this, I think it was like a Nintendo game, and the pickup animation just didn't exist for when you pick up items off the ground. You just like pick it up. It's like, as an indie dev, I would be like, oh, I have to have a pickup animation, but you really don't.
how do you? I mean, that sounds like a lot of work. How many people are you working with right now?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, so right now, I'm just working alone on this project. Yeah, I want the full like creative ability to work on this. I have a few friends that are developers from previous startups that they're like advising me, like I'm giving them ideas. I'm pretty much solo working on this, from the learning CS part up to the game development part, which is like a pretty fun experience. I'm kind of doing this a lot for fun, which is, again, one of the important things to do. So yeah, it's just pretty much me working on this. Yeah.
How did you find the community at first when you first started?
Sorry.
Uh, how did you find your community when you first started? Because
Uh,
I mean, obviously, maybe moving to a smaller city would. I think there's a lot of aspiring indie developers who come from not really a social atmosphere in their town or wherever they're from, and I think like at this day and age, it's possible to do anything from wherever you are. But how do you like what would you do to start with
yes.
finding people who you can connect with?
Yeah, I mean, the internet. The internet is the most powerful tool we have today. It just connects everyone and everything. My first game that I ever made, like my first studio that I ever founded, was just me and someone I found in the Roblox forums. Basically, they were looking for a developer, and like someone to do pre-modeling. They were a developer. They wanted to make a game. I was like, "Hey, what's up? Let's hook up." We were like, I want to say 11 or 12 back then, just diamond teenagers, just like, "Yo, want to make a game?" And then that's how we became like friends and working together for almost like 6-7 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and yeah, just like forums, communities, existing stuff. Just like find people that are interested in the same things as you, and remember that you're like, it's not just, you have to like, it's a give and take as well. Like, what can you offer and what can they offer? Like, how can you work together? What skill sets you have? Like, it worked perfectly for us, where he was the programmer, I was the game developer and pre-modeler. I did all the arts, and then it basically just meshed, and we made some really cool stuff. In terms of nowadays, right now, my community is just my previous work. People I really enjoyed working with. People who are my mentors, people who helped me along my journey for like learning computer science and things like that. Former like people in the communities I worked in and built along, friends, just building along all that stuff. Yeah.
That's so interesting. We talked about this, I think, last week with Michael about my cousin. He's 10 or 9 now, and he's just very active on YouTube. He like told everyone, "Oh, follow my YouTube channel. I'm making game reviews and everything." And it's just really cool to see how I think the main characteristics that create a successful, not just games, but I think ventures in general is just being proactive, looking for people and partnering. I think that's one of the most important part of um, a business is to find someone you can chat with and discuss ideas with and do things together. But I mean, I guess that would be really difficult for you right now because you're doing it all alone. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so what I personally like doing, this work different for everyone else, is I have this separate Discord where I like noting down every little thing I do, my to-dos, like what I plan to do for the day, what I've done today, like how well everything was. I have this little like forum in my Discord where I just write this all down. And it's just a way, I think it says something like 5,000 entries now in it. It's just like little like lines. Like every single day, I'll try and put something into this, a little bit of progress, and I think that just keeps my sanity going, because it's just one of those things where I have this like detailed list of everything I've struggled with. Oh man. So I can just like go back. I remember doing this one thing where I felt like I was stuck in a rut. I was just like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this. It's really tough for me. And I scroll up just a few months in the past. I'm like, wow, I was struggling with like, this is like when I first started programming, but I was struggling with understanding how for loops work. Like what?
Yeah.
Like that's recursion. Like it was that difficult for me. It was just a massive eye opener. Like thinking, oh man, I'm working these much more challenging problems. All this stuff built up, and it just keeps me driving forward. That's just my personal motivation when working alone. But again, I still have like some people just that I talk with as well, who also keep me a little bit accountable. I have some friends that I've met along the way who also keep their journals, and we sort of like it's mostly isolated amongst here, but we still like check in with each other sometimes on our own like projects and stuff like that.
I want to hear a little bit more about this project that you're working on. Can you give us like a overview and sort of what motivated it and where it's going? What's your vision and stuff like that?
Yeah, sure. So a bit more of background myself. I used to be super into community service and things like charities and stuff like that. Back in my high school in Hong Kong, I used to be part of a what we call the MAD Council. I was the head of that, which is basically Making a Difference Council. And what we did was we helped pair students in Hong Kong with charities from around the world, and that was something that like I really found a passion for, with like working with like environmental NGOs, especially on my own side, and plus a bit of like the side of the recent thing of AI, which I've been heavily working on. A lot of my friends work in AI space. Like I have a friend working at Amazon on the AI that they're working on. And that sort of has always interested me with the science fiction plus like historical like cultures. So I'm currently working on a sci-fi action RPG, sort of like top-down thing where you're basically piloting a small emergency response vessel that manages a like sort of massive crash-landed sci-fi colony ship in a alien water world. It's called Hydrift, sort of like drifting and hydra water, that kind of thing. Just a name for that. And I'm sort of trying to focus on a lot of like my past like experiences, NGOs and stuff like that, with like also my sort of love for technology and like it's I have a bit of a weird like mental space here, but so I'm trying to focus on that like the gray space and making difficult decisions, right? Like not everything is like perfect. You can't just be perfectly green. You can't be perfectly focusing on like technology or progress of society and stuff like that. I kind of want to focus on a lot of these like challenging scenarios. And I think that's a bit of my D&D past, because I've been like doing D&D for ages, where I love challenging my players of ethical dilemmas. And the entire idea of like ecology and technology is a big thing I love. Yeah, so that's just basically what I'm working on right now.
Sounds
What's
really
the
fun. That's
timeline?
cool.
Yeah, sorry, that was probably a little overwhelming. I kind of went about that fast.
No, I like the background. It's cool to see, like, because especially like what we were talking about with indie, a lot of it comes from, you know, your personal experience and your background, and a lot of it that makes a game interesting is sort of like the reason why for that game. And so it's cool to hear that context. I feel like that's something that you should like even include when you're talking about the game and marketing materials and stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think having that personal connection with the game and the reasoning behind it is so personal. I think that's so cool. So I think one of the questions that we wanted to answer on our blogs usually is how, because you know, obviously this is not a cheap endeavor. You're doing everything by yourself, a lot of time, and you've put a lot of effort and time into it. How do you fairly price this when it's released?
Oh, that's a good question. I am probably a terrible person to ask this, as like I personally hate charging for things. I am a proponent of open source and things like that. But I know that you have to charge for things. Like it's you won't be able to put food on your table if you don't. I personally think that it's one of the things where you have to kind of look at your audience. You have to look at your competitors. I think like pricing is one of those challenges I don't think anyone has really solved. You can sure get algorithms like the grocery space and stuff like that, but you can't satisfy everyone, and I think that's something that has to be very relevant. But like yeah, so you have to like keep top of mind. You obviously can't be charging like 99 cents for something that you spent decades of your life on, for example. Like but I think it's one of those things yeah, you have to really like look at your competitors, then look at what they are like offering, and then go to the people that you've been working with, like the people they've had test your game, see what they find the value of it, and judge it based off of that. I think like it's something I think you have to go off of just competitor, set some frame of reference in your own head. I think pricing is really something that's in your own head, really. It's not something that it's too important to worry about, in my opinion, for an indie game. You can always change that in later if you price it too high or price it too low. But something just keep in mind that you just adapt. It's adaptable, hopefully. To people, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And I think also just like what you were saying about focusing on your competitors, just kind of making sure that your game's not like way too cheap, because then people will think it's not valuable, and not way too expensive, because then it'll be hard to justify the price. So just kind of finding like a sweet spot about what you feel like would be appropriate for the game is probably like the best approach.
Yeah, I have like 2 questions left on my list, so I'm very excited that we're able to cover everything. I'm just excited to learn. You're a super active member. I've seen you on Discord all the time on our Discord. What can you just tell me a little bit what pushes you to be helping us doing it?
Yeah, sure. It's just 100% just like I love engaging with communities and giving back. Like Michael helped me a ton with like my own like process of like figuring out a lot of the assets, and a bit of learning about like and dealing with a lot of the issues I had that were pretty stupid questions. So I definitely just wanted to pay that forward. I love the work that Michael's doing, so I just like want to also pay that back, I guess. And I really like the community. There's some great people there that just like talking, and I think yeah, I just really like helping people, I guess. Like it's one of those things that when I help people, it sort of helps me learn a lot as well. I think I when I'm helping people, I learn so much. It's sort of because in my opinion, it's sort of because you're thinking about things that you think are easy, or like that you haven't really thought about. But then when they ask those questions, even if they're really silly questions, you end up having to think and go, is that actually how I thought? Or maybe like, did I trip up with something? And it helps bridge those gaps. Because I think building that like really strong like foundation of your knowledge, even if it's like super simple stuff that you keep returning to, sorry, is really important. Because without that strong foundation of like you're confident that this is how this works, like you can't really build off of it as much.
Yeah.
Do you think you learn more from your own experience, like past failures, or from the questions that other people asked that you didn't think of before?
Oh, I mean, it's that's something that really
It's a
depends.
tough question.
Yeah, that's a pretty tough question. I would say that I think learning from past failures is how you push yourself forward to do things like more like pushing yourself out of comfort zone, right? You're failing because you're learning, right? And when you do your own thing. And I think when you're helping others with questions, that's because you're improving your foundation, or like building out that base a bit more, right? So like I think they work hand in hand. I don't think there's one that's better, because they help in their own ways, where doing your own failures is really important for like pushing yourself further, right? Your knowledge base. But helping others and like with like even simple questions, or even sometimes advanced questions that you're aware of, helps build out that foundation, help you push yourself further, right? To like make those failures like even more of a like have more of a learning impact, because then oh okay, so foundationally this is not how it should have worked, or foundationally like I could have done something else, or yeah, it just opens up how much you can do.
I asked this to Michael the other day. Well, not the other day, a few weeks ago, but I wanted to ask you now about this. What do you think is the future of indie games look like?
the future of indie games is going to be something that is just always growing. I think like we're seeing massive improvements in sort of AI. We're seeing more people enter computer science. We're seeing all this stuff. We're going to see a lot more exciting new things always happen. I'm super excited to see where like AI goes in terms of when we can start integrating that properly into some like larger titles that aren't just like little tech demos nowadays. I personally don't think it's there yet. Maybe in like a few years, we'll see like larger LLMs and stuff like that. We'll see a lot more creativity in it, as like it's a lot of like indie game development is no longer just like pure science only people. It's people from all sorts of backgrounds are like learning computer science and being able to bring their skill sets into it. So we'll see a lot more creativity there. I think it just like we're seeing a lot of like developing markets expand. It's pretty exciting over the next few years. I am a very strong proponent against like indies slowly dying out, especially with the recent news of like Baldur's Gate. A lot of these big hit indies that have just like or smaller like not like
Yeah.
AAA title stuff, sorry, or like small games like Lethal Company and like I almost said Power
What's it called? Power World. Yeah. Pokemon 2.
Pokemon 2, yeah. And
Yeah.
things like that, right? It's super exciting to see all this kind of stuff.
Are you incorporating AI and Hydrift at all?
Um, personally, I am not. Maybe down the line. I personally don't think it's there yet. Some of the personal projects I work on work with AI, and I don't think that it's like something that I want to fit into like this kind of project. I use the themes of it for sure. Like AI is a massive core theme of what I'm working on. It's pretty much I think a central pillar of it. But I I think what I'm working on right now is a separate concept to like implementing AI itself,
Makes sense. Have
or
you
at least
seen
LLM AI. Sorry, I have AI, but not LLM like generative AI.
Got it. What about one thing I wanted to hear a little bit more about your game was you mentioned that a big component of it involves like making hard choices.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit more about like what those hard choices might look like?
Yeah, so I think one of my favorite games is RimWorld, and I really love that it's not like you can do pretty much anything you want, right? But it's the decisions that you make there are like storytelling devices. It's about there's this one like challenge scenario here where you are given a scenario where it's just like a band of wanderers comes along your colony. Do you give them gold or like help them out? And it's from what I can tell, it's just it has no real consequence. Doesn't really have a consequence. You can give them a cash, they leave, maybe they come back later or something. It doesn't help you at all. But I think it's just one of those things that helps you with your moral understanding of like what your positioning is in like your headspace in a game. And that's something I really want to explore. It's not just like what kinds of actions am I going to take that will like perfectly get me to the perfect objective. But it's what these small impacts I make as well to analyze like yourself and like how you're like what character you're putting yourself into. It doesn't have to. I'm not necessarily making a test of like your ethics. Again,
we're gonna record all your responses.
Yeah, no.
Report them to the government.
It's more I want to focus on like the idea that you're putting yourself in character and that no real like there's no real perfect answer of anything. You can do anything you want. There's this core concept I really want to put across in my game, which is that you can pretty much eliminate any like core character, any like name character in a game if you want, and then a new one will fill its void. So you can decide, hey, if you eliminate this character, like if you take them out of contention of this world, like they will like you'll end your problems with them, right? You'll end that like relationship chain with them. But if you let them free, maybe they'll learn from their mistakes. They'll come back stronger, be able to counter whatever like weapons or stuff you have equipped for your own like system or your fleet, and they'll come back like stronger and better than before. Or they'll bring back intel to like help out with that. Or maybe they'll come back as a companion and something like that. That like maybe they'll come back with like a changed opinion of something. And it's sort of like I sort of don't want to come across as like, hey, like you can only ever be good, or hey, you only focus on technology and progress of society. It's like there's never what I've learned throughout my time is like, even though I'm pretty young still, I don't know why I'm saying my time, is that there's always like a gray zone for everything. People do things for their own reasons. And I think like one of the strongest things in storytelling is like, I don't like villains that just are villains for like,
they're just evil,
bad, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason they're doing it. And I think once you add that level of storytelling onto things, it becomes a lot more of a richer experience. And you can tell actual stories rather than just like wish fulfillment kind of fantasies, right?
Yeah, sure. That's really cool. I think I was just watching this show the other day called Scavengers Are In on HBO Max. I don't know if you've seen it, but it gives me a lot of similar vibes to what you're talking about like making hard choices and having fleshed out characters. And it actually takes place like on a different planet where like a colony freighter like crashed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So definitely a lot of similarities. So I think you would really enjoy it.
I'll have to take a look at that. Inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also that's a trend in storytelling in recent years. I've been starting with a lot of Disney films, I guess, like Maleficent. All of these villains get to finally explain their stories, and we get to see why they are the way they are, because no one's really born a villain.
Yeah, you're the own hero in your own story, right? It's like you're probably the villain to someone else. It's not necessarily like there's like ever a pure good. It's you're probably the bad, like to Snow, like to Maleficent, like the baddies are the protagonists of Disney films. It's like this entire thing of like there's typically a reason for most things. And if you don't give them, if you don't have the reason, like it's just you're just beating up those Bond villain like security guards. You don't really think about it, right? Like if you think about it, those security guards just doing their job, you know. Bond's just going out there taking them out, like
poor guys.
That'll be a
Bond's
movie about the
villain,
security
you know?
guard. So when is it? It is so exciting. What's your timeline?
So so remember that thing about how I had a deadline?
Yeah,
I
remember that.
right? So my original deadline, like my own planning, was to have a vertical slice of it done by about the end of the month, start of next month. But realistically, I think I'll have a vertical slice with all the core mechanics done by sometime in the summer this year. And from there, I just kind of want to look and see what the interest is, see if it's something I want to explore further with either like a publisher or continue bootstrapping, or even do something like a Kickstarter for, just to see what the waters is. I just want to get this done by the summer and then see where it goes from there, and see how enjoyable it is.
Nice, that's cool. Will you share like the vertical slice as a demo, like publicly, or are you planning on keeping it sort of like
so I'm open. I like keeping everything I do open. I don't really hide any of the stuff I do. I'm planning on just making it vertical slice a free thing for anyone to check out, try out, share what I've been doing over the past few months. It's not going to be perfect by any long shot for sure, but it's something that hopefully like I'll get out there, see if like the vision I have is working, and then maybe see if I can expand, like bring on more people that I know, and then see if it's something I can like fully develop into something.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Definitely looking forward to playing it when
definitely
the demo comes out and sharing it with the community as well.
Yeah, me too. Thanks you guys. I think that's the end of the conversation. I have no more questions. If you guys have anything else to add.
No, it was good meeting you, man.
Yeah, it was great meeting you guys. I mean, if anyone out here wants to like watching this wants to follow my social media or anything, you can just like, I'll probably do some updates on YouTube at some point. I haven't really worked out my like social media. I'm a bad marketer for myself. But you can follow me at Kyle Lee, Kyleli. That'll be my YouTube channel. Yeah.
On YouTube?
Yeah, on YouTube.
All right, cool.
I'll put it in the
Awesome.
description below.
Yeah, let's make sure we link to it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, awesome. It's fine. It's super nice to finally have like put a voice to your writing or
Definitely.
the face. Could definitely see a lot of you, but yeah, it's great to finally see who you are and like hear you talk and sound exactly like how I imagine you sound.
Oh no! Yeah, good thing or bad thing. I talk too fast. I type too much.
No, but you know what? That's what we love most. I mean, that's why I picked you first. It's like, oh my god, this guy, I need to talk about him.
Yeah.
I just talk with him about something. I just want to see what he's like.
Yeah, I always like sharing my opinions on things a little too much sometimes.
Yeah, well,
It's been really
thanks
good
so much
meeting
for
you, man.
coming.
Thanks for coming. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks
definitely.
for coming. Hope to see you. Hope to see you soon. I'll have this posted to our community. And yeah, well, I think the recording is going to stop right now, so I'm just going to say bye to everyone who's watching.
Bye, guys.
And I'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
Thanks a lot.
I'll see you guys. Yeah,
All right,
you.
so are we good?
I don't know what the ending is.
I'm just going. No, that was just for the camera. I'm just gonna say bye to you now. Thanks for doing this with us.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, definitely. It was awesome. It was great fun. Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for your time.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
See ya.